Well, I started with the guitar first. That was my first instrument, and I started with classical music. Then I graduated towards folk music, world music, and then eventually American music. It was at the American music point when I was around 11 that I finally got a violin to try some of this stuff out on. And so the fiddle music was an early inspiration. I loved American fiddling, bluegrass, Texas style, Cajun, old time, country, and then eventually swing. By the time I was 13, I got into Stephen Grappelli and Joe Venuti and players like that. Benny Thomason was my teacher. Stephen Grappelli became my final teacher. And then I hit the road. I was a child musician and eventually played all over the country and in competitions, at festivals, and in concerts by the time I was out of high school. A lot of people are feeling like I am, is that we've been missing the boat with making sure that children love music and love arts music at an early age. I think that there's so much to be said for children's access to music, to find music. And Classic for Kids is an incredible organization that puts professional musicians that love their craft, that have spent their whole life learning how to play beautifully, and they take their job seriously when they perform for children. And I do too, so it's a great combination. Dana invited me to participate, and we're playing to 5,000 children this week in San Diego on my visit. And we want the children to have a entertaining experience, but we also want them to have a deep experience, something that their little emotions can channel, that they can figure out, something deeper about music, the beauty of it, the artistic nature of it, the beautiful forms and expression, the creativity, the compositional aspects of the music, and how hard and we've tried to play our instrument well, and the dedication that it comes from participating in music through many years of practice and participation. And so this message for children is not only great for music, but just as good citizens, and as good people, and developing a beautiful culture that we had started years and years ago, and we don't want to lose. When Dana called me to participate in this event, I had released a string method about 4 years ago. It's called the O'Connor method, and it takes the young student through the education of music, through American music, through creativity, beautiful pieces of music, and rhythm and counterpoint and harmony, and the history of American music, all the different styles and the eras of music making in this part of the world. Involves Hispanic music and Canadian music, music all the way from hoedown to spirituals to rock and roll and boogie woogie. And this kind of American classical approach, using our music from this part of the hemisphere of the world, is something very new. And I wanted to bring that program here, do some teacher training, introduce it to the teachers and to the children in San Diego, and inspire children to pick up the violin and string instruments with a new kind of approach for learning the violin in the 21st century. Well, music, just like everything else, needs to go forward. We can't always rely on the greatness of the past. Collectively, our humanity looks forward, and so our music must. And in order to do that, we need more and more creative people involved in string playing. And my hope is that my method will produce not only fine string players, but fine string playing composers and arrangers and improvisers. Children, eventually adults, that could plug themselves into hip-hop music and rock and roll and different forms of music with their string instruments. So we can have the violin express itself, all over the map musically, not just in the orchestra, although I feel that's very important. So I have an orchestra series that goes along with my solo books and builds an artistic bridge between those things. So orchestra can become a jam session, for instance, with the right materials. And I feel that those are the American music materials that I've included in my method. I hope that the track out of my method for learning strings and also classics for kids is that eventually children will learn and appreciate Bach again and Beethoven. We can't forget these historical figures. We just need something else to go along with it that moves forward so we can embrace and enjoy the historical figures of the past. You know, rock and roll does that nicely. You know, as we write new songs for rock and roll, we remember the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. We want to do that with classical music as well. And I think that strings should be involved. String instruments have an incredible history in classical music, but they also have an incredible history in American music. And to bring those two things together to provide a new kind of forum for education, for performance, for creativity is important. One of the things that I think about funding a program like Classics for Kids is that you involve beautiful music making, artistic music, our culture and our history of music, and children. When you get all those things working together, the funding is out there. We've just got to find the people, show them what we have, and they'll support us. Organizations that think smart, like Classics for Kids, put the whole thing together, and people will come and support this because they recognize the powerful work that the people here in the organization are doing.